We're obviously on the verge of closing what has been an ugly November for ADA, for BTC, for pretty much everything throughout the crypto space. And the good news, at least, is that this doesn't really happen that often. Could this, in fact, mean that there is some green ahead for us, which we will discuss in this video? Do also want to talk about clarity for ETFs, specifically ADA ETFs, coming within a month. This is a quote that I do want to have a discussion about. And I also want to talk about something else I noticed in terms of ADA regarding what we're seeing on a fundamental level and the negative mindset surrounding it. So if you guys are new or haven't already, show your support for the channel down below. But let's dive right into this, because obviously November has been trash. October was not great either. And this has led us to a strange Q4, where Q4s tend to be pretty good for the crypto market. It's been straight up dog water. This is the best way to describe it here in 2025. You guys can see BTC closed down 3.69% in the month of October. October obviously had some ugly things taking place. We had the largest liquidation event in crypto history. We had a lot of uncertainty surrounding the government shutdown. We had uncertainty regarding trade wars. There was all these things that just made October bad, but then November got even worse because the market had PTSD. We saw rolling liquidations that continued throughout a huge majority of the month. And again, now at least the market is trying to find some stability. It's trying to say, hey, is this where we plant our feet in the ground and start to move the opposite direction? And what I will say here is that when we do have back-to-back red months, it tends to be followed by green. It does not happen that often, and it hasn't happened that we've had 3 straight red months since all the way back in 2022. Bear market, deep bear market, right? 17.3% in April, 15.6% down in May, and 37.28% down in June. Could that happen again? Sure. We could obviously have some more red rolling into December. It could be the worst Q4 we have seen in a very long time, since probably all the way back in 2018. What I keep looking at is what's happening on a fundamental level. What's taking place in terms of the big players? They're buying. They're rounding out their bags, and I'll talk about this more here in just a moment. But people are fighting against some pretty big players in the space, trillion-dollar asset managers that are just straight up buying into this. And this is where, again, I think this cycle is going to be different than others. But before we get into that, I want to talk about this, because a big discussion as of late has been ETFs. When are we going to get these ADA ETFs approved and going live? And in a recent interview, Frederick Regard, CEO of the Cardano Foundation, revealed that the long-awaited ADA products could be closer than many expect, which is what I've said here on the channel. I explained that while the media keeps calling them ETFs, most of the applications filed so far are technically ETPs, products structured like ETFs, but backed fully by ADA and traded on regulated markets. He confirmed that several major asset managers have applied for ADA listings and said the industry could have that clarity within a month once U.S. regulators return to normal operations. And, you know, people tend to get very short-sighted in the crypto market. It's a lot of recency bias, and people forget that the government shutdown ended, like 2 weeks ago? 15 days, 16 days ago. They're still returning back to normal operations. There's a huge backlog that right now they're working through. Now, the good news is, like I've talked about in some other videos, we're seeing some of these ETFs rolled out. It's almost like every single week we're getting new ETFs. And what that means for ADA is we're probably going to have an ETF approval in December, maybe into January. Again, I don't work for the government. I'm not a fly on the wall in those rooms. I don't control the rate at which they do their approvals. But this is a cascade of approvals. There are multiple entities that have filed for, again, ADA ETFs. There are multiple basket ETFs that ADA is, in fact, approved to be in. So what you're talking about is demand for ADA that can lead to some pretty exciting things. And maybe it starts small, but I think it's something that, again, over time, especially as we see some big Cardano integrations take place, it's going to accelerate. All right. Now, something that I think everybody should know about as well is that, remember, there are ADA ETFs and ETPs are already approved and functioning worldwide, right? It's not like the US has the only ETPs out there or the only exchange traded products available. We are seeing institutional demand for ADA around the world, but obviously this could make things even move faster, as you're seeing some, multi-billion, trillion-dollar asset managers really interested in what ADA can offer from an investment standpoint, but from a technological standpoint as well. And that's where I think people kind of miss some of the writing on the wall. And I'm sure some people will say that things are negative, and you have whatever opinion you want, right? But here's the thing that I find comical. For example, there was this person, Eilert, that actually posted this comment on Twitter. It said, Cardano ADA's weekly RSI is printing multiple bullish divergences. This setup hasn't appeared in years. With ETFs, stablecoins, oracles, and institutional infrastructure on the way, ADA might be the most undervalued asset in the market now. And all you see on something that is truly a technical post, one that has data, right? People are like, oh, are you out of your damn mind, or do you want to be a stupid artist? Haha, shitcoin. Dip got no chance, right? And I see these comments on YouTube here all the time. And what's funny is that people, just like a parrot, they continue to repeat this stuff time and time again. I don't know if it's just like them trying to convince themselves or them just going along with the flow and thinking it's cool to bash on ADA. But the problem is so many people are missing what's actually happening on a fundamental level, what's happening on a technical level when it comes to Cardano. These are things that you can't argue against. There are ETFs for ADA that are filed for, that are going to get approved. Laos is coming, which is going to make the Cardano ecosystem faster, right? You have strong fundamentals. Holders are on the rise. Whales are increasing the size of their positions, right? These are things that, regardless of your feelings, you can't argue against because it's on chain, it's data. And that's why I think is one of the funniest things is when people try to argue against data, good luck. You lose every time, right? And we have seen these Cardano fundamentals come into play before. And guess what? It's led us on some pretty exciting rallies over time. And all we've watched throughout this market cycle is the size of ADA holders grow, the conviction of ADA holders grow. So if you even have similar demand to what you saw back in, late 2023, early 2024, how much more exciting you think this move can get? And actually, coincidentally enough, I was thinking about this. What ADA is doing right now is kind of similar to what it did here in basically August through the early start of November of 2024, on a fundamental level, on a technical level. And look at this. It's almost like a set of stairs, right? Setting the higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. And it looks like we might even be bound for some chop here between basically 40 to 46 cents or so. And again, this isn't, a guarantee or financial advice or anything like that. Again, a lot of the technicals are showing that we might be on the verge of a bounce. We've, again, bottomed on weekly stochastic RSI. I actually saw someone comment, oh, how are we supposed to move up if on the daily stochastic RSI we're topping out? Yeah, sometimes these top indicators on stochastic RSI, they can be slightly misleading. Like we talked about earlier, right? You can get this bearish cross, but you can kind of be chopping and slowly working your way up and actually kind of get stuck up in this range for a while. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here, right? This would obviously suggest that we could have some downside for ADA. And again, maybe this is just the kind of chop in this range before things get wild, right? This is what we saw back here in late 2024. So here's what I would say is that technicals are strong. Fundamentals are strong. The news cycle is starting to work in our favor. And we'll obviously see where the market decides to head. But that's what I wanted to share with you guys. I appreciate you as always. I hope you enjoyed the video. I think it's time that everybody start looking at some of the information themselves and making their own judgment call and not going with what people on Twitter say, not even what I say, right? This is why I bring you guys the information so you can make the judgment calls for yourself. But I appreciate you. Have a great day. Show your love below. Catch you guys in the next one. Take care.